See if it wants to work this time. Still kind of getting the hang of this, so bear with me. For some reason, when I looked at it, it was like lagging, even though we just did a video. There we go. It's working. Cool. Close that. And get to work. Now you'll see a big difference in drawing for color and drawing for, or at least when I'm coloring it, it's black and white. Hey Dan, yeah, this one should be fun. A little different. Not my usual fare, but should be fun. I have drawn some Batman the Animated Series characters for DC/IDW, so we'll try to not embarrass ourselves. But because the last one took so long, I might only be able to get 2 done today, which is not what I wanted to do, but that's just how it goes. But I'll be back on tomorrow, and I'll start earlier, and hopefully I'll just get ahead. And this one will be in color, so be able to see me break out the watercolors. I'm just keeping it simple with the moon there, and we'll have some trees. As you can see, here's my rough. I did that in about 5 minutes. I know there were several versions of the animated Scarecrow, but going with the one that I remember. With Batman the Animated Series, I always think of that red sky. Hope everybody's doing okay. My cat's still asleep in the other rooms. He probably will be spared having to hear him snore on either of these. I don't remember if there was a noose in the animated series one, was there? No, I don't remember. I have to pull it up on my phone. I don't see one on the animated series one. I don't think you can see that, but that was the direction that they wanted me to go in, so. Scarecrow's cool and all, but as most people know, I'm not the, I know it's sacrilege, but I'm not the biggest Batman person. My favorite Batman-related books of the last, like, 15 years was the Rucka J.H. Williams Batwoman book. And I read the Snyder Capullo New 52 stuff, and I enjoyed the Court of Owls, but I dropped the book when it became just like to me, just another Joker story. And I understand that when people get an opportunity to work on books, they want to tell their version or their Joker story or their whatever story. And I've read enough Joker. In my 35 years of walking the earth, I've read a lot of comic books, and it's been a long time since something new has been revealed about Joker that I was drawn enough to read. But I do like the Scarecrow. I think he's cool. I like the Riddler, I like Two-Face. I like the Penguin. And I honestly don't know a lot of the other stuff. Like, I know he's been in some of the Batman video games, but I don't really play new video games, so I really don't know anything about how Scarecrow is being used nowadays. I remember the sort of Scarecrow in Batman Begins. That Cillian Murphy played. But it's definitely a character you can have some fun with, and you can make all kinds of organic shapes and lines, and they don't seem too out of place. Oh, okay. Yeah, I must have missed that one. There's a lot of different versions of all the characters. Like, I saw a picture when I just Googled Scarecrow real quick from a recent video game, and he was pretty terrifying looking. It must have been Arkham Asylum. He was pretty scary looking. I mean, I like it as a concept. It's like an over-the-top villain idea. I think the first time I saw Scarecrow was actually on the Super Friends. He was part of the Legion of Doom, I believe. tighten up the hands a little bit. They're more like claws, but tighten those up some. Just for when I'm inking, I don't have to think about them as much. Yeah, that is cool. I could see the struggle with the character though, as far as having to write him as like how many different ways can he administer the fear toxin before it gets like super redundant. I don't really remember when Scarecrow first came around, but I can only imagine what they would have done in the Adam West series. Hey, thanks, Bill. I know this is more your area of expertise, but it's what the gentleman requested, so I'll try not to mess it up too much. Yeah, I would say that they're far more interesting. Um, I just get tired of the Batman is invincible, even though he's supposed to be like everybody tells you why they like him is because he's like the regular guy. Like if he was a regular guy, he would lose a lot more than he does as far as to. At least I think he would. But hey, that's just me. For those who don't know, Bill Walker, who commented there, he's a terrific artist. He does animated style stuff with his Hero Business comic strip that's online, and he does a terrific job with it. And he's much better at this sort of drawing than I am. But client asked. Yeah, and it's not that you don't like Batman, or that I don't think that he's an interesting character at times. I lose interest in like overly powerful stuff. It's one of the reasons I never got into the Avengers or Justice League because like how could they ever lose? So it's great when you're a kid and you just want to see all your favorite superheroes on the same page. But as an adult, I just can't stand too much of that stuff. One of the hardest things with these animated style things is that like you get one shot to nail the shape and you have to do it with as few lines as possible. What is it that Toad said? Like eliminate all unnecessary elements and then draw the hell out of what's left. No, I'm not always so good at that. I try to be versatile. It's got me some gigs I never would have gotten otherwise. Well, I mean, that's what the requests are for. It's, if I got to just sit at home and draw what I wanted all day, I don't think anybody would buy it. So make them happy and go from there. I do think taking some liberties here, because I don't think that any of this was like a spotted black in the animated series. Like they would use a darker shade of the color that like his hat was, but I need a little bit just to help me see what I'm drawing. Yeah, that's exactly right, man. Like the first turtle gig I ever had was for the animated adventures, and it was they made me do rounds of test drawings and stuff, and I had to be able to recreate exactly what they wanted, in different formats before they'd even consider giving me a shot. So, and that was just for like what you call it, a alternate cover. It wasn't even like a shot at the actual book itself or anything. Oh, thanks, Dan. Taking a little bit of creative liberty on some stuff, but when we color it, it should be okay. Yeah, I mean it's tough getting those gigs. Usually it's, a show or a store that's commissioning their own edition of the comic book, and that's how I've gotten all except for like a couple of gigs of mine. At least that's how I've gotten my IDW gigs. I've gotten referrals, but most of the time it's so and so wants to do their own cover here. If you're approved or they want you from the start, like if you were to partner with a store or a convention nearby, you know, you might be able to finagle it that way. In some cases, it's just very much like who you know that's looking to buy comics from the publisher directly. Most of the time, the publisher is willing to at least entertain the idea of doing a variant cover of pretty much any of their books because it boosts their sales numbers immediately. It's like a pre-sold book. If a convention does a print run of like 1,000, then they're gonna jump all over it, or even more. Some conventions print more. Like I know Reed Pop does, variants for all of their shows at once, so they're like printing, 5 or 6 thousand comics. I'm sure IDW is like jumping all over those numbers, which actually, it makes some of those numbers tough to gauge. It's always good to get out there and meet people and talk to people, and especially if you're looking to do commercial comics, because it's a commercial gig, it's public, and everybody wants to. I mean, they're really tough jobs to get. Now more than ever, people are wanting to do comics and stuff, which is crazy. I mean, back in the day, if you talk to some of these artists that broke in, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, they just walked up with a portfolio, like, hey, yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll give you a tryout, and then, whatever. And they still have, portfolio reviews and stuff at shows, but, I don't think, I think it really is pretty rare that people get pulled from that stuff. Although I do have fond memories of when Alex Cormack, who does stuff for IDW, like Road of Bones, he's got another book coming out with them. Ben Bishop, there's one other artist that like made it out of the preliminary rounds at Boston one year for the Marvel portfolio reviews, and we sat down with Ricky and CB Sobolski when they were doing portfolio reviews, and we got through, and we're all still doing comics. We're all making our own books and finding our own way. Ben did a cover for the Electric Black Presents that is on Kickstarter right now. And he's always working with Kevin on the drawing blood stuff. Yeah, it never hurts to just know people that are trying to do the same stuff as you. And in different elements, like get to know your retailers, get to know your convention people, get to know your fellow creators. A lot of the times I get gigs because somebody that I'm friends with is like, hey, let's make a book. Oh, thanks, Michael. One thing that might slow down the coloring a little bit is that I didn't do much pre-mixing. When I usually sit down to color commissions, I'll pre-mix all my colors and stuff. Yep, yeah. I usually always pre-mix my watercolors. It's all I really color with anymore, just because I enjoy it. I enjoy it more than the markers. I've talked about it many times. Oh, thanks, Mike. I actually don't make prints. I'll take a scan of it and I don't make prints of characters that I don't have permission to use or own. I'm just using the soft brush for most of it because it has to be big lines. It's supposed to be more of an animated style. It's really just using the, the iconography and the cliches, like, bats flying, creepy branches. Nothing too crazy or clever. Simple silhouettes. Alright, now I'm not going to ink in the moon. What I want to do is just an old trick that I've done for a long time. Is you can sort of see where it is on this side. And I'm going to ink it on the back and use the light behind it so that I can see it on the other side, so that when you see the final piece, it's not an inked hard outline around the moon. It's just a really simple trick that, if you look on the back of some old drawings, you'll see some people have done that in the past. And since I'm coloring it, I left some big open areas for color. And I've actually not even connected some of the lines so that when I color it, you get the extra pop. You can look at it and you can sort of see where it still needs some extra shadow. It needs a little bit over here. It needs heavier shadow there. Thicken up some of these lines here. Oh, thanks very much. Yeah. Adding just a little bit of detail here and there because he's got kind of a rough surface to him. And I don't want to do like a crisscrossy texture. But I do want to add just a few little bits here and there. Yeah, the one on my right here, this was just the rough, and I did it really quick. I just wanted to get the idea down. It's not a super complex drawing, but it's a fun little one. And see, if you see the light, what I'll do is I don't know if you can see it, but where I inked it in the back, you can see the edge of the moon right there. And what I want to do is leave it blank. I don't want to have an inked edge there. At least that's the plan. BJ, welcome back. Oh, thank you, Shay. Thanks for coming by. Hope all is well up in the city. Hope you guys are good and safe during these crazy times. I can barely look at the press conferences, to be honest. But Here's my simple palette. I can give it away if people want it. I mean, I guess it's a little tighter than I usually do. What I tend to use are, I like the Grumbacher watercolors, and I also like the Cotman ones. I bought a set of these years ago. I occasionally have some Utrecht brand. So, yeah, let's keep moving. I do need a piece of scrap Bristol so that I can test my colors as I go. Take one of these. That's just a piece of scrap so that I can test the colors as we go. And I always have 2 jars of water. I don't know if people care or not. One's for warm colors, one's. All right, yeah. I mean, I'll raffle it off if we want, if that's what people want. See, it's kind of a pink, and we want like a hard red, so let's get some more red in there. And then this is burnt umber. Makes it a little more natural. I was always trained to never use paint straight out of the tube, so. All right, yeah, I'll give away the prelim. I do not mind. So there's going to be a little more mixing of paint than usual because I usually pre-mix. These are actually the paints from that TMNT piece that I posted a few days ago. That's a little better. This will be our warm colors water, and then I have one here for like the cool colors. Check this yellow. Yeah, doing some color. Get it done before dinner in Svengoolie. Unfortunately, I'm not going to get to Kurt's today, but I will do his, tomorrow. I'll start on his early. I always add just a little bit of brown because to me it takes the edge off that yellow. Perfect. What do I do with my phone? I guess if I was more clever, I would have done the bat signal instead of a moon, but here we are. All right. Now this Bristol is pretty good at handling water, so I'm not super worried. What I'm doing right now is I'm adding water to that circle that we did for the moon that we inked on the back. A little bit of tone. Now, I wouldn't consider this a painting, this is a colored drawing. But I think it's important for me to make that distinction. Oh, nice. That's true. I've already reached the coloring point, so I kind of gotta just plug along. Let me see it. Let me see if the picture looks better without the. Is that easier to see with the colors? Probably a little easier to see. A little less direct lighting. It's a work in progress, I suppose. Now, when I think of Batman the Animated Series, to me it's the red sky is what I think about. Again, just laying down some water so that I can get some movement with the pigment when we put it on there. I'm leaving a little bit of a gap because the moon's still wet. You don't want to touch the wet. I'm probably going to do a couple layers of red just so that it's nice and saturated. Right now it still looks kind of pink. Thanks, ladies. All right. Obviously yellow is our light source, so I'm going to put a little bit of yellow first. I do need to pull up reference for the colors on this guy. Okay, varying colors of brown. Okay, that's doable. There's like an orangey brown, there's a brown, like a gray brown. Cool. What I'll need to do when this dries is I want a very saturated red here, and then it's just going to get darker and darker. I'm probably going to go in with some now what you're going to see here is just basically where I want the edges of the light, and then you're going to have the edges of the darkest shadow. This is sort of your underpainting. This is going to be, with the exception of probably this yellow on the edge here. There's going to be a brown coating over like everything. And if you want to watch a person who's like the best painter like around right now, Stelfreeze is always doing like tutorials and stuff, and he's much better than I am. So if you want to like learn super duper awesome techniques, go haunt over on his page. I love his stuff. I think this is the first time I've streamed working on color. Usually do the color afterwards, but commission weekend. All right, let's get a little, spread that out a bit. It might be really hard to see like the little bits of yellow highlight that come along the edges of the light, but when you see the scan of it, this portion will make sense, at least hopefully. Brian Stelfreeze, he does amazing work, and you know, you can see he does like time-lapse drawings and demos and stuff like I do, but better. This is Payne's Gray. This is my lifelong crutch for painting in watercolors, at least. It's a very neutral shade. It works very well as an under. The one thing you do have to be careful with Payne's Gray is that it tends to overpower warm colors. So you have to go a little lighter. Like this underpainting layer, I'm doing this extremely light, very little pigment, a lot of water. But what it'll do is give you some depth on your shadows. And instead of making these all like blacked out, it gives you some really nice variation. Yeah, I don't think I've ever streamed putting pigment down. But with watercolor, you got one shot, so you have to make it count. Otherwise, all of this has to start over. Some people will actually just use straight ink wash underneath their paintings, their colored drawings. Like I've seen J.K. Woodard. He's another excellent painter who's done work for heavy metal and tons of magazines and stuff, and Marvel Comics, IDW. He uses ink wash underneath his stuff. And what you're going to see is this has started to dry, which is good because I use a lot of what's called dry brush. So it's what creates like the different textures and layering, all the little bits that I like to add to pieces. Now Shay, the guy that popped in earlier, he's a heck of an artist himself, so he knows how all the light and cool color stuff works. But as you can see, I've basically taken a bit here and there to make it, look sort of three-dimensional with the grays and the yellow. But now I got to mix some different browns. I've got sepia, burnt umber, and burnt sienna. They're all different browns. The sepia is the most neutral of them. Let's see. You can see how much warmer the burnt sienna is. And you can use raw umber, you can use raw sienna. They mix differently with other colors and have different properties. Sepia doesn't want to open. I probably had this tube of sepia for like 10 years. I don't use it all that often. Okay, let me pull my reference up so that while I'm mixing I can see. It looks like I need a slightly warmer tan color for his face. So let's see if we can get it with this that we started. I think that's close, but it needs just a little bit of the sepia. Right there. Now I want to keep some white paper because I don't want to use bleed-proof white on this piece. Good thing with all these browns is you can just use that warm water. Create some of those halftones. See right there. And when we come back in with like a heavier brown, we'll be able to really get that to pop. But you can see underneath that it's got a nice little hue to it. I've always liked it. If you look back at my paintings from like college and like before, I've just always used it because it's a good catch-all. You can see where that yellow is. It just warms up that brown. It's tough to see, I'm sure, on the camera, but when I scan it in, I'm sure you will see it. A little bit of water. Let that dry a bit. Now his hat is like a darker brown, so we're gonna go more. I use some of that umber that's right there. A little bit of the sepia. And this is just where you start to get a feel for the colors. Like I wish there was a better way for me to explain like percentages of pigment and stuff, but it's more like ratios. You know, I'm using pretty much, I need it to be darker. I'm going to use just a touch of the Payne's Gray. And I need to use my other wash for that. It still needs to be darker. There we go. That's a good color. Now, you remember where I added the yellow earlier? You can sort of see it there. Now there's both yellow and blue on his hat. I don't want to go past the yellow because that's supposed to be giving me my bit of moon. And you can see like just that yellow like dancing in and out of the edge there, and that's what I wanted. Same thing over here on the edge of that brim. One bit of advice for anybody that's looking to try watercolor is if it looks too dark when it's wet, then it's the right color. It needs to look too dark because it's going to lighten up when it dries. Actually, it looks like his pants are the same color, so. Bring that down here. Okay. Guess I'll fill in his hands since they're the same color as his face next. Normally I wouldn't do it in this order, but because we're doing it all at once instead of, paint one thing, let it dry, go back. Normally I would have more drying time involved. But this is a character, again, I'd probably never pick for myself to just draw for fun. So I'm happy to take a crack at it here. I don't know if anybody's seen Mike McCone's beautiful watercolors that he's been doing lately, but they're pretty great. He did a Captain Marvel the other day, the Marvel version, Marvel, from the 70s, like the Jim Starlin one. It was just absolutely gorgeous. Tremendous. I don't think he does videos though. I think he just does his stuff in his studio and then posts it when it's done. I'd be interested to watch his process. All right, we need to make an orange. I use this here. As you can see, I'm not as precise as many artists are with their palettes. Just kind of winging it. Add some red, a little bit of yellow, some more brown. A touch of it. It's a little too dark, so let's go on this. Like I said, this is where you're kind of just. I actually have some ochre that would be really good somewhere. I had ochre. Not sure where my ochre is at the moment. Must have dropped it. Happens. It still needs more red and yellow. This is just cadmium pale. Cadmium red pale. I usually mix 2 or 3 different reds, but I think this one will work nicely for the color. Yeah, there we go. And I try not to waste the paint, so what I'll do is I'll actually wrap this. I'll put this in just in a plastic bag so I can use it on other stuff. Thanks, Jessica. Doing the color thing. Hey, Jerry. Well, here's your piece so far. So what I need to do for the Scarecrow, for the, what you call it, the straw, it's actually not pure yellow, so it's actually kind of a cream color. So I'm going to take some of our brown, just drop it in there, a little extra water, get some yellow. It's just a little more brown. I think we need just a little bit. There we go. Oh, I'm glad you like it, Jerry. Thanks again for getting it. Like I said earlier, I never would have picked him to draw for myself, but you know, I'm happy to take a stab at it. So I missed a couple of spots. I missed a little bit of orange. Hello to my one Twitch viewer, whoever you may be. This is just a lighter version of the orange that's on his shirt, so just add a little water and mix it on the paper. That's how I roll sometimes. I'm going to take a little bit of this, use it on the rope. Now we've let the background dry some because I want to add a little bit more darkness to the red. I want it to be a deeper red here. We need to outline kind of the moon with a little bit of gold, and you know, then we can go in with just some Payne's gray and finish this baby off. Oh, we got a little bit of a bleed over. So what I'm going to do is take the red that we have here. First, I have to fill in that one spot that I missed. I'm going to go like this. Just take some pure red. Just bring it down. I like my colors vibrant, so I add a lot of pigment. Okay. Remember that crutch I told you about? We're going to use that crutch right now. And because Payne's gray has those blue properties, you get a nice purple effect. And like I said, as it dries, it still lightens up. So, you know, it looks really dark right now, but just let it dry and it'll take care of you. Just a little bit. All right, I want to take some of this yellow here, a little bit of this brown. Touch of red. All right, a little bit more Payne's Gray on the Scarecrow, and I think we'll be able to put this one to bed. I do need to sign it, but I have to wait till it dries to do that. I get a smaller brush for this. This is the a little bit finer detail work. What we got here? Just a 5. Keep it small, keep it simple. And this is just straight Payne's Gray on top of the already painted stuff. I should have done a little bit darker underneath. That was my mistake. I was just a little nervous, I guess. Too dark. Now I noticed they didn't add any shadow to his eyes or anything, or his teeth, but I'm adding just a tiny bit. And you'll see as it dries that it gets a little bit more of that purple. And with the Payne's Gray, I'll just use it to shade, just like I use ink wash. And it's just a little bit more of a dynamic shadow because it's got those blue properties. I might add just a little bit of smoke behind him with some bleed-proof white at the end after it dries, but I won't know until it's dry, and it'll probably be tomorrow. Keep that orange there, but what I'm doing actually is framing the orange with shading around his body. Which I don't know if that makes sense, but it helps to make the whole thing pop a little bit. Just a little bit on the hat. I think everybody left on here, my buddies that already have commissions lined up, but tell your friends, happy to do more animated characters if people like this one. It's almost 6 o'clock. I gotta go cook dinner. It's still wet, and I don't want to drag the color across, so I'll just take the top of this Bristol. Color it that way. Well, I think for the purposes of this video, we have finished the color 6x9 bust of Scarecrow. There's probably a little bit of tightening up that I might do, just a little bit of tweaking as I always do. But I think for the most part, we've survived. We did a full color piece on a stream. Hooray. Yeah, commissions are still available, so if you like what you see, just hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any of those places. Thanks everybody for hanging out again. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Good night.